Hey guys, welcome back. 3 years ago I made a video talking about some of the worst designed champions in League of Legends, at least in my opinion, and I had a lot of fun making it, which is why I'm going to be doing an updated video, only this time I'll be discussing 5 new champions. Even though a lot can happen in 3 years, my thoughts on the ones chosen for that episode haven't really changed all that much. Yumi got reworked, but she's still an intrinsically flawed champion. Tryndamere to this day is well overdue for a rework. Vladimir has a very lazy design and should not be allowed to AFK farm for 20 minutes while being a lane bully. Mastery is in a similar situation as Tryndamere, and Singed is just annoying. Obviously, there are many more champions in this game that draw the ire of players, which is why I felt like it was appropriate to make a follow-up episode. Because it's been a while, I think I should re-clarify that worst designed for me isn't always synonymous with overloaded. In recent years, players have a tendency to associate anyone with a 200-year skit as a badly designed one. I agree that it's true in some cases, which you'll see later in the video, but not always. Champions with bad designs are either those that make counterintuitive sense or take advantage of a flawed mechanic or loophole that gives them an advantage beyond the scope of what most champions would be able to respond to. Like for instance, Yumi being able to provide support for an ally without exposing herself at all, while other enchanters have to put themselves in danger to support their team. Mind you, she's not as bad as she used to be, but I think you get the point. So without further ado, let's get started with the list. First champion will be Alla. You can accuse me of being biased as a top laner, but I don't care. Alla is a juggernaut with an incredibly unique and creative design that was executed pretty poorly. She's a control juggernaut, the first and only one of her kind, capable of exerting staggering amounts of pressure with the caveat that she fights best when standing her ground, not chasing after her opponents. The trademark weakness of a juggernaut is their lack of mobility, making them easy to kite or disengage from as they don't have the stick potential to keep chasing after fleeing enemies. In exchange, they're among the most difficult champions to fight head-on, as their equal combination of durability and damage allows them to overpower the majority of the cast. Alla shares these same qualities, but she does things vastly differently than other juggernauts. The premise of Alla is territorial control, naturally making her a strong threat in lane where champions, notably top laners, tend to stay in one area for long stretches of time. This makes her excessively cumbersome to fight for most champions. Tentacles have long range, especially with the buffs in Season 14. They deal AoE damage, meaning they can strike you while pushing the wave. They have incredibly high base damage and can heal Alla with each champion struck. To account for all of this, they make the tentacle attack animation impractically slow, enough to where even a champion with base 325 move speed can sidestep tentacles without much issue. Expectedly, Alla needs a way to somewhat guarantee that pressure will land on her opponent, and so they came up with Test of Spirit. Test of Spirit affords Alla a way to prevent her target from casually avoiding everything, as she, and by extension her tentacles, can focus on the unmoving spirit instead of the actual champion. This leads to a polarizing game state where if you take her on while Test of Spirit is active, you're basically guaranteed to lose the trade or fight. On the flip side, if she misses Test of Spirit, she's one of the weakest juggernauts, if not the weakest juggernaut in the game. In lane, Alla can beat down just about any champion who can't easily dodge her E or poke her from afar, but with how well she scales, getting caught by her tentacles or Test of Spirit becomes even more consequential. Yet at the same time, her animations do not get any faster, even though now the situation has changed to where she's expected to move around a lot. So much of Alla's pressure is inconsistent that over the years they tried to improve elements of consistency within her base kit, including increasing the pressure Alla herself deals through Harsh Lesson and making it so fighting back against her no longer shortens the duration of Test of Spirit. However, there's still the overarching issue of her pressure not being guaranteed, which goes against the notion of juggernauts being some of the most consistent threats in the game. And so they bump up her ceiling to make her easily the scariest in her class if and when things do go her way. Alla is just way too volatile of a champion. She's either useless for the entire length of a match, or she becomes a living personification of 1v9, with way more strength than even the likes of Darius, Mordekaiser, and Aatrox. There's nothing wrong with a bit of fluctuation, mind you, that's within everyone. But few champions, if any, come close to how wildly Alla swings from one side to the other. Next champion we're going to talk about is Shyana. Unlike the other 4 champions on this list, she's not badly designed for being too volatile or having a flawed gimmick. She just has a bad design, period. Shyana was always a weird champion from the get-go. She's a half-dragon who spends half the game in human form but can turn into a full dragon when casting her ultimate. It's an interesting premise and a fun conceptual diversion from your typical steroid ultimates that just give more health and stuff like Nasus and Renekton. Among the VGU projects that are currently being considered, next to Tryndamere, Shyana is the one I'm most looking forward to because man, she's one of the worst champions in the game, period. In the early days, she was basically a less mobile but more durable Master Yi, farming jungle camps and accumulating a bag of gold, then literally taking that bag and bludgeoning you to death with it. Everything in her kit was based around empowering her auto attack damage and her Q, which was just her attacking twice, basically the equivalent of Ye's double strike on inactive. Burnout gave her magic damage on hit and bonus move speed to stay on top of enemies, while Flame Breath would mark enemies for her to deal bonus max out damage per hit. What makes her less effective and appealing over other attackers is that her means of stick potential is easily the worst. Burnout can last up to 7 seconds, and with enough ability haste that can result in permanent uptime, but it's a far cry from gap closers that you see on Irelia, Jax, and the like. Moreover, she doesn't have the same kind of front-loaded damage you see on those champs. She has to get close to you and then hope you're stupid enough to stay and fight for long periods of time instead of playing the game normally. In fact, there's not a whole lot she can do in general, and lest we forget, most of the time her passive is just irrelevant. The premise is simple, just highly unoriginal. Shyana is one of the few remaining holdouts of the old-school auto-attackers, most of which have been phased out of the game, with the only ones remaining having a certain gimmick to them, Jax being the anti-auto attacker, Trent having crits and the like. Shyana's gameplay is really no different from old Udyr, who powered himself up then ran towards you to auto-attack. Throughout the past few years, they tried to make her more of a hybrid attacker where she can go on-hit bruiser or go AP Shyana for big torpedo damage. Neither option really plays into the fantasy of a half-dragon though. At the current moment, Shyana feels like an inferior version of any other Juggernaut or Mage, hence why it's imperative for her to get reworked. In my opinion, rather than having her transformation tied to an ultimate, they could give her the same mechanic they gave to Gnar, where it's a passive transformation built upon accumulating fury. That way she can incorporate her dragon form more into her overall gameplay instead of being useless pre-6 and then still be useless even after. Alternatively, they could go the evolution path where at certain levels she goes from becoming a half-dragon to a full dragon, kind of like Kale. Hypothetically, if at level 16 Shyana remained a full dragon indefinitely, that would definitely make for a much more satisfying win condition. So I guess altogether, she's one of the worst design champions in the game because of how uncreative her kit is and how poorly it depicts the experience of a dragonborn who can transform to and from a full dragon. Next champion's gonna be Pike. I already summarized how I feel about the guy in his Everything Wrong with episode, so for those of you who already watched that, I'm essentially echoing the same things here. Pike was an experimental attempt at creating a support who can take a more front seat and aggressive role in the bot lane. They certainly passed on the aggressive department, that's for sure. To his credit, from an experiential standpoint, Pike is a fantastic design. He excels at divide and conquering, taking out opponents one by one before disappearing as quickly as he came in. The annoying slipperiness offered by Ghostwater Dive and Phantom Undertow both being usable to engage or retreat, along with his unique regen mechanic that helps him survive 2v2 lanes, do a spectacular job capturing the essential experience he's trying to portray. Why I consider him one of the worst design champions in the game is that his very identity contradicts what a support is. Pike is an assassin. Assassins couldn't be the furthest away from being a support, so the fact that there is an assassin whose main role is a support is a red flag in and of itself. For the record, I'm not against pushing the boundaries of gameplay constraints, but I will say that there are lines in the sand that are not meant to be crossed purely for the sake of stability, and this is one of them. The assassin class by nature is very gold hungry, necessitating high amounts of farm and kills to get going. They try to work around the absence of gold by allowing him to kill steal while still granting full credit, along with giving him scaling in the form of lethality, so that he can still keep up reasonably even though he'll likely be down in levels compared to a mid laner or jungler. This creates a problem where he can generate ludicrous amounts of gold depending on how many kills he can get, despite being in the role known for the least amount of resource abundance. There's a reason you don't just see someone like Vi going support even if theoretically she has great engage and lockdown for her team, because Vi needs gold and experience. When played efficiently and if circumstances permit, Pike's gold generation through his ultimate can result in his team consisting of 5 carries instead of 4 carries and a support. There's always a meme or joke about Yone one-shotting the enemy ADC on her own, but Pike can do that so much more easily. He's practically a solo carry, which is the reason there was the whole issue with Pike mid. You can't design a self-sufficient class in a world that was not meant to be self-sufficient. The amount of nerfs he sustained that specifically targeted his ability to solo lane is proof of how fundamentally counterintuitive Pike is in this game. At least for carry supports like Zary, Senna, and Vel'Koz, they trade safety for higher kill pressure. Pike does trade safety in the sense that he can't shield or heal his teammate, but he is one of the hardest supports to take down with how slippery he is. Historically, Pike has always been seen as an underwhelming support. His engage is nowhere near as impactful as a Nautilus or Alistar, he's not as tanky as a Leona or Braum. His kill pressure, while high, falls short of Zyra and Brand, and his roaming potential isn't quite up to par with the likes of Vars. That's the point though. If Pike excelled at something, he would be the most overpowered support in the game because he can actually carry. He's one of those supports whose win rate improves drastically the higher up you go. He has to consistently remain underpowered to be quote-unquote fair, and even then, he's one of the most obnoxious supports to deal with. Champion number 4 will be Zary, another cast member with a compelling gameplay premise that was ruined by poor execution. Right now, she's in a decent spot. I'm being charitable when I say that. She was designed to be a battle marksman, a caster battle marksman to be exact. Battle Marksmen are among the most skill-expressive ADCs in the game for how dangerously close they have to be to their opponent to deal damage. If they're allowed to do so, their DPS is extraordinary, let alone the other things they can do. While Vayne's all about her max out true damage and Kallista's all about stacking spears for backloaded burst, Zary's all about ramping pressure. Her basic attack and Q essentially trade places, which may have you think she plays like Ezreal, but far from it. The core trouble with Zary, in my opinion, is twofold. First, they tried to make a caster ADC with the same DPS as a battle marksman, and second, they tried to make a safe battle marksman, which goes against the high-risk, high-reward nature of the class. Let's talk about the first one. Ezreal's a caster marksman well known for a strong mid-game and great poke damage, but he tends to fall behind late game when compared to the walking machine guns that are Jinx, Kai'Sa, Vayne, Xayah and stuff, due to not having the same auto-attack pressure and his Q being unable to crit. Zary has DPS rivaling or even exceeding the super duper late game champs, as her burst fire can critically strike, attack at give or take the same rate of fire as you would expect a marksman to attack, and when combined with lightning crash and spark surge, it deals heavy AoE damage. For all intents and purposes, she's less of a caster marksman and more of an auto-attacker who presses a key instead of attack moving to deal damage. At one point, Burst Fire could activate Spellblade, but then they realized how broken that was and took it out, so she was even more problematic back in the day. As for the second problem, Zary's one of the most mobile champions in the game when you start building stacks of Hypercharged. Not just that, but she can also dash over the entire length of a wall to escape to safety if in the event she gets engaged on. Champs like Vayne and Kalista can move around rather quickly when they get going, but their combo mobility is exclusively meant for kiting or chasing, not for escape and engage. Plus, her combo mobility can far exceed everyone else's, provided after a while. Zary had to go through a lot of balance changes during her first year of tenure, with a lot of stuff having to be nerfed or outright deleted from her kit, like the aforementioned Spellblade property, because they forgot that all of those restrictions on Ezreal's Q are there for a reason. Zary is not just a caster AD carry, she's a caster AD hyper carry, packed with all the 200 years features we've come to expect from a modern day champion. I still remember when Burst Fire had a max distance of 825, making her the farthest reaching ADC in the game at base, more than Caitlyn, Rocket Jinx, and max level Tristana. Then there was AP Zary for a time, making her flexible in both magic and physical damage. Then there was Tank Bruiser Zary, who took advantage of Q consisting of 7 smaller shots, letting her full stack Black Cleaver on the entire enemy team in one cast when paired along with Titanic Hydra. Like I said in previous videos, this kid went through more balance updates in 1 year than some champions have in 10. By this point, Riot has a bad habit of being too flippant about design constraints. Your superpower can't be that you have every superpower, that's not how it works, and yet that doesn't stop them from trying to make champs like Pike, Zary and stuff who break the rules and then expect people to just smile and play along. The moment you have to remove something from a champion's kit completely, that's when you know there's something fundamentally wrong with them. Last but not least, Kante. Now, I could do the same as the previous 4 champions and write a long, thoughtful discussion over why I think Kante is terribly designed, but why waste my breath when Showmaker describes him so much more eloquently? That guy really has a way with words, doesn't he?
이게 아웃소리지 이게. 이게 아웃소리야 이게. 어? 이게 그 상태다. 체력 4700, 방어력 329, 마저 201인 챔피언이 저지불가 실드 벽 넘기는 거 있고요. 에어본 있고, 심지어 쿨타임은 1초밖에 안 되고, 마나는 15 들고, W는 심지어 변신하면 쿨 초기화에다가 패시브는 고정 피해가 들어가며, 그 다음에 방마저로 올리면 올릴수록 스킬 가속이 생기고, Q에 스킬 가속이 생기고, 스킬 속도가 빨라지고, 그 다음에 공격력 개수가 있어가지고, W가
Alrighty, that wraps up my video for today. Lately, I found myself becoming more tolerant of 200 years champs than I used to be, but I think I've just become blasé about it. We've seen so many of them at this point, we might as well just accept that that's how League is gonna be. Anyways, what are your thoughts on the picks I chose for this video? Do you agree or disagree with them? I encourage you to share in the comments. While you're at it, if you enjoyed the video, it would be great if you could leave a like and subscribe. Consider following my Twitter at Vars, joining my Discord server, and checking out my other champion discussion videos if you haven't yet. But till next time, thanks so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Take care.